This weekend, I managed to go from walking home to being on a date with a girl I didn't know in less than 2 minutes. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did it. I was walking home. I think I'd been out in town. I'd gone to see some friends. And I was walking down the street, and coming towards me was a pretty girl. And I liked her hat. So I simply took the shot, because this is where most guys fall down. They see the pretty girl, she walks by, and she's gone. And then he gets to live with the what if. What if I'd said something? Maybe that could have been your future wife. Got no idea. But you never get to find out if you don't just make the interaction happen. So fortunately for me, I did decide to make it happen. I simply put my hand up and was just like, hi. And then she sort of half stopped. And then I was like, I think your hat is awesome and you look really cute. And she had her earphones in, so I still think she was a little bit confused what was happening, but she stared at me. She almost carried on walking, but then she stared at me for a second longer and then decided to engage slightly in the conversation. And I simply just asked her, like, okay, what are you up to today? Where have you been? She had like a bag with a yoga mat in it, so she'd been to the mall. We chatted about yoga for a little bit. I'm not very flexible at all, but she seemed to be. So we were chatting, having a good time with that. And I asked what is considered, like a banal, boring question, but I think it's an important one to ask. I asked her, what are you doing now? And she simply said, nothing. I'm going home. I was meant to meet up with a friend, but they cancelled. So, winner off a completely boring question. I was just like, well, would you like to go grab a drink? Just one drink. And she looked at me again. I think she was doing the very much like sensible female thing to just do full assessment of, is this guy a weirdo? And she said yes. And I think one of the things that I think help most in this situation that I recommend to people is always setting a frame that even if you're going to speak to girls, when I initially approach them, I'll compliment and then we'll go into a bit of a conversation. I'll just be like, you mind if we chat for just like 2 minutes? And that sets a frame around it that makes her feel secure about the interaction, because it isn't, if I speak to this guy, then he might never leave me alone. It's like, if you say, it's 2 minutes, it gives her this sense of comfort that's like, I could probably spare 2 minutes. And then if it gets to the end of the 2 minutes and she's not interested, she'd be like, I've got to go, 2 minutes and all that kind of thing. And she's got to shoot. But if it's going pretty well, she will not care about the 2 minutes. She just carry on talking. And that's what I did when I offered the drink. I was like, one drink. We'd meet up upstairs, the bar. I knew there was a bar just up the road from us. And she was game for it. And she went, and we went across and we went up to this bar. And what I did next, which was probably a good move, was I didn't sit us inside where it was particularly intimate, let's say, and very romantic. I stuck us outside because she was still very new to me. This was literally in under 2 minutes when we'd suddenly gone on to an instant date. And that's something that I think guys don't really realise that you can do with a girl, of literally going over and just going on an instant date, an instant interaction. So because we were so fresh, so new to each other, I ensured we'd sit outside where it is just that bit more public, a little bit more comfortable, because to move in immediately inside with the darker room, the sofas and all that kind of thing, it didn't feel right. It would be too intimate, too fast, and I think she'd have been a bit put off by it. So we initially stayed outside, we ended up getting to know each other. We were getting on really, really well. So then at that point, after maybe an hour of chatting, I was like, let's move inside. And what this did was help just create this progression to the interaction, that we'd gone from being strangers on the street where we met, we had a cool little interaction there, to then we went and sat outside on some tables and chatted there for a little bit, and it seemed to be still going well. So then we progressed to the step further, and we go and we sit together inside the bar. And what I'd always recommend as well, if you're going to on a date or whatever it is with a girl inside a bar, pick a situation where there's at least one side of the table has like sofa seatings or like cushion seatings. It's not just individual seats. You want to have that ability to be able to sit comfortably next to each other at some point. So we go in, and I essentially, what I did do is different to what I'd recommend, but I think it's just because we did do the stage before. And that is, I just immediately sat next to her. If it had been a normal date, we'd just met up, I'd have probably sat across and then moved next to her partway through. Because we were already vibing, I just sat down next to her, and then we sort of like chatted for a bit longer, and I kissed her, and we ended up having a really great night of just chilling together, chatting about films, music, and all that kind of stuff. And she was so happy that she decided to come like with me to the bar. She was ecstatic that she'd made that decision, and she was treating it like her own little fairy tale story of this random English guy that she'd met off the street, and now she was having this awesome date, and we were basically just cuddling and kissing in the corner of a bar. And I think she will probably remember that forever. And we ended up meeting up again last night, and it's still going very, very well. And this is all to say that you don't really know what's going to happen until you actually make it happen and speak to a girl. Yeah, you can get blown out. I've been rejected. I've probably been rejected more times than not, because there's so many different reasons to reject, and there's only really one reason to accept. So having that fear of rejection, yeah, it's natural, but the possible upside is so ginormous. It's like the rejection, if she'd have carried on walking, I'd have just been like, that sucks, and I'd have just gone home. But the possible upside is meeting a girl, having an amazing interaction, spending all night with her, and just having the opportunity to share a moment with another person that was special and unique and isn't just swiping on a dating app. So I hope this can inspire you to realise that you genuinely are 2 minutes away from being on a date with a pretty girl that you really want to get to know. All it comes down to is taking that first initial step and just going over and saying 2 letters to this girl. Hi.